Awesome. Thank you. Well, welcome, folks. We appreciate you joining us today in the first of our two meetings today for the ASWS Advisory Committee. Today, this morning's session will be a little more of our business session, covering the normal parts of the agenda. This evening's session, we have more of a wide-ranging opportunity for the committee members to just talk, converse amongst themselves. We have not been able to prioritize that in prior meetings, and we wanted to make certain that you had that opportunity today. So that, in general, is about where we're headed. Could you advance to the next slide, please, Vicki? All right, so as you saw, this meeting is being recorded. Please be advised that your image and voice will be captured and recorded during the video conference. Your participation in this video conference equals consent to be recorded. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so let's take a look at our agenda for today. Call to order, welcome. We will do roll call in just a moment, and then we will go through and look at approving our meeting minutes if we are at a quorum. And then I want to talk briefly about a couple places in the charter. We're going to cover one first about when we take public comment and where we want to have that routinely in our meeting. And then Gustavo will be able to speak with us about the prevailing wage survey update. Then we'll have an office update, the workforce services division update. If we have not already covered public comment at that point, we can take a little public comment at the end, and then we will recess till this evening. All right, so that's about as much of the agenda as I want to cover for the morning. Vicki, you want to go ahead and do a roll call?
Absolutely. Thank you, Joy. John Devaney,
Present.
Mike Gempler,
I am here.
Delia Pena, Elizabeth Strader,
I'm here.
Edgar Franks,
Here.
Michelle Besso,
I'm here. Thank you.
Rosalinda Guillen,
Rosalind is not available this morning.
Jeff Peralt, Ignacio Marquez,
I am here.
Juan Gamez, or Jerry Gerard,
I'm present.
Uriel Iniguez.
Here.
Perfect, Joy. We have a quorum. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. So there's a couple places today where we're going to be talking about possible adjustments to our charter. And while I'm not intending to make adjustments to the charter today, I want to preview a couple of these, and we can take votes as to whether proceed in a certain way. But one has to do, and the first one I want to talk about is talking about the public comment section of the charter. And generally speaking, what we have in the charter allows for up to 30 minutes of public comment. It is limited to 2 minutes per person so that there's plenty of room for everyone to speak. And that is about as directive as it gets. There is a sentence in there that suggests that 30 minutes will be at the end of our meetings. Now, stepping back, one thing we see in other public groups such as this, like my local school board, other areas, is that often public comment is moved to the beginning of the meeting to allow the public to raise issues for the committee to consider or discuss. And Bertha and I were wondering if the committee would like to take that schedule change to allow for public comment at the beginning and allow for the timing to be such that someone could raise an issue and we can decide whether to take it up on the agenda. But I would love to hear from committee members what they think of that idea.
Just Gempler, I like it.
Okay, sounds good. John?
I don't have a preference either way. I just sort of had two observations. One is that usually at other public meetings, the comment is the beginning before there's action. We're
Mhm.
primarily discussing more often than we're taking votes. So I don't know if it's preferable to have the public comment or respond to the conversations that we have, or schedule for it at the beginning of the meeting prior to any anticipated voting or action that we're going to take. The other item I was thinking of is that we have the translation service on call, and usually they wait around without much to do until the very end of the meeting.
Mhm.
Would having the comment period at the beginning of the meeting allow those folks to better manage their schedules and possibly the billing back to the agency?
That's a good point. Um, we are now relying on in-house translation from our staff. So our staff tend to be on, but that is a very good point, and I appreciate that. Yeah. Are there any
This
other?
is Ariel.
Yeah.
The only thing on my experience on these things, it's in terms of when people bring up ideas on the agenda, just to make clear that, and this is something you guys might want to look, in terms of adding items to the agenda
Mm-hmm.
on the spot. I don't know if it's because of what is it, the 30-day notice that we have to send out the agenda and things like that to the public. Well, changing the agenda on the spot, is it okay? So that's just my only comment on it. But I think at the beginning makes sense, because if we address all that stuff that John expressed, it does give people to talk, and then the committee can take that into consideration as they deliberate throughout the meeting.
That's a good point. I think your point about the agenda is well taken. I think one way that is mitigated in other bodies who are also subject to OPMA like we are, is to have a section on there for new business. So it's a good point to pair this with an opportunity for new business, if needed. So, Elizabeth.
Opportunity for new business makes sense to me. It also, depending on this actually hasn't come up a whole lot that there's been public comment that we end up having any, a significant amount of discussion around. But
Sure.
if we did, it would make sense to me to have it take place before the member-led discussion section.
Okay. Good point. All right. So what I am hearing is that it might behoove us, well, Bertha and I, to do a little bit of research on exactly how this would work. But perhaps for today, we go ahead and leave it where it's at on the agenda. And if we are interested in bringing forth any changes to the charter or procedures, make that an agenda item with pre-work for our next meeting.
Yeah,
Does that
Joy,
sound reasonable?
this is just, yeah, and just a couple more thoughts.
Yeah.
One is just that then we really have to keep, it really makes us have to keep tight to time frames, because we already,
True.
when when the committee starts discussing agenda items, we run out of time, right? Like I know last time, I'm totally guilty of, wanting to know more about, an issue that's on the agenda, and then, we run over. And if we had comments at the beginning, it could it could really throw off our meeting. The only other thought I had was kind of to Elizabeth's thought. It's really only when we have a hot topic that we're discussing that we end up getting comments, like when we had the COVID discussions.
Mhm.
Seemed like we had more public comment. And one thing to think about is whether when we think when we're going to have like we're going to schedule a discussion about a topic, for possible action, or I don't know, that we put on the agenda comment at the beginning, or I don't know, in order to, when there's something already on the agenda that might interest the public, but it's just a thought.
No, I like that. I think what I'm hearing all of you say is that there's a need to balance this. And you're pointing out some very, very good operational issues that we should consider as we move forward, but they could also be operational issues that help us strengthen how we set up agendas and our time management during meetings anyway. So I appreciate that all. And I appreciate us talking about it. So for today, let's go ahead and leave public comment where it's at on the agenda. I've taken notes and we will have the recording of this meeting to go back and refer to as well. And more to come. All right. So with that, I realize that, at least according to our timetable, may bump us up quite a bit. But Gustavo, do I have you here?
And Joy, sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
we do need a motion to approve
Oh.
our meeting minutes.
Yes, let's go ahead and start that since we actually have a quorum. We have our meeting minutes from, is it May and June? No,
May only.
May only. So we have our meeting minutes from May that were sent out to the committee ahead of time. Did everyone have an opportunity to review?
Yeah, I move to accept.
All right, we have a motion to accept. Do we have a second?
I move to second. This is Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate your second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. All right, the minutes from May are accepted. Thank you, Bertha, for keeping me on track. Appreciate that. All right, Gustavo, would you like to talk with us about the prevailing wage surveys?
Thank you, Joy. Yes. In particular, I want to talk about the 2022 employer survey and the 2023. If you remember, back in August of 2023, we share with agricultural stakeholders the results and findings of the survey of 2022. Then we submitted those results after we discussed them with stakeholders, and we submit them to the Department of Labor. Right after that, the findings, well, for the 2022 survey identification of prevailing wages process, we were implementing a new process because the Department of Labor had changed the way we identify prevailing wages. We share that method, our understanding of that method, to all of you, and then we submitted our results and our method to the Department of Labor. That method was challenged in court, and the results were not published, and that also took us to the 2023 survey, in which those results were also challenged, and the method. And up until this year of 2025, we received direction from the court to identify certain responses that meet certain criteria in relation to the award and take those responses out of the analysis. We did that, and after we comply with the court's direction, then we also finished and then submitted them to the Department of Labor. We are also in the process of finalizing the survey of 2024, and we're about to share those results and findings with all of you and other stakeholders like we used to do it up until 2022. I'm sorry, the survey of 2022. In the meantime, when we submitted the results of 2023 to the Department of Labor, that was in June 13 of this year. Before that, in June 9th, our report was published in the archive of our reports by accident. And then in June of, I believe, June 19, the Department of Labor published prevailing wages or prevailing wage findings that resulted from the survey of 2022. Although they had already received survey results of 2023, they published survey results of 2022. I think that's more or less the story and the history of the survey findings and results of 2022 and 2023. Any questions?
Well, this is Michelle. I just wanted to let the other committee members know that I had asked that Gustavo or that someone come and explain the timeline because they hadn't mentioned the 2023 survey results at all at our May meeting. And I was confused by the timeline and what the department was doing and how this was, why the 2022, 2023, 2024 were all coming out, right? In the same time frame. So I sent them a letter asking for this. I couldn't share it with the whole committee because we're not allowed under Public Meeting Act to correspond outside of these meetings, right? As a whole committee. So I wanted to let the other committee members know that I did send a letter. Rosalinda actually and I sent a letter asking for this, for them to come back to the committee and explain more of what the current survey process is.
And
Thank you,
Michelle, let me just say, we were very appreciative for that communication. And thank you for letting the committee know about it. One of the things, Gustavo, that I believe you and I have talked about, my apologies if it feels like I'm throwing you under the bus, but we talked about having you come before the committee on a more regular basis to update us on the status and the progress of the different wage surveys. Yes? Because
yes,
okay.
and that was going to be the next topic, which is the 2024 status and next steps. But I wanted to, before I dive into that, to make sure I wanted to give this group the opportunity to ask questions about the history and timeline of 2022 and 2023 survey results. Sorry.
Gustavo, this is John Devaney. I appreciate as well that you're giving us this update. This is helpful. And it was challenging when the DOL published the 2022 results because we had to sift through archived emails to try to find 2 or 3 year old data that we had archived somewhere. Do you have the current the more recent data that the 2023 survey that I guess was the results were put forward in 2024 that may be floating out there at DOL somewhere?
Yes, and I believe, Joy, we have a link for that report, right? And it's here in the slide deck, right?
Yes, but it's not clickable right at the moment. We can drop that link into the chat for the Zoom here. I will work on that. Give me a moment.
Thank you.
So with the caveat that in the past, what we have done is we share our results of the surveys with all of you and more agricultural employers or stakeholders. And we present that report with the caveat that that's our submission also to the Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor at the end is the one who makes the determination. And we also engage in conversation with the Department of Labor. Many times they have questions and we need to clarify them. And sometimes there may be changes. I don't remember of one happening, but at the end of the day, the Department of Labor has the responsibility to make the determinations and then they publish them. So the report that Joy will provide the link to is what we consider preliminary.
Yeah, so John, the link is in the chat here for the Zoom. And it is also in the PowerPoint that you received yesterday.
Gustavo, this is Ignacio. You may have said this, I missed it, but what exactly happened June this year when employers were confused about the information that was posted from DOL on the wages for Washington?
I believe that's a question for the Department of Labor. First, nice to hear you, Ignacio. It's been a while since we exchange communication. Yeah, the Department of Labor, we are not, the Department of Labor did not notify us or gave us a reason why they are publishing 2022 survey results after they receive survey results of 2023. They published 2022 survey results findings, I believe 3 days after they receive or 6 days after they receive our 2023.
Thanks. Yeah, maybe this is a question for Bertha then. What wages are employers supposed to be using right now?
The wages as published on 6/19, and USDOL has directed ESD to post those wages on our website, and that is in process.
Thanks. And I'm assuming the all employers know that they're supposed to be using the 2022.
According to USDOL, each employer was sent a wage adjustment letter directly with specific instructions about which wages to pay, which year's wages to pay, from the survey. And ESD, we are being careful about not giving guidance directly, but rather deferring to USDOL's guidance. So my understanding is that USDOL has contacted by letter each employer directly, directing them to refer to the wages.
So when you're doing field checks, is that information needed by you when you do the field check to make sure that you are looking for the right wages or using the right wages?
Yeah, we've talked about that as a team. We don't have any field checks on deck right now, but we're working through that. The other wrinkle, of course, is the ongoing litigation, specifically Familias Unidas por la Justicia versus USDOL. ESD, of course, is not a party to that lawsuit, but that has that could be also a factor. And if any changes needed to our operations, we will seek that guidance from USDOL.
Okay, thank you.
And Bertha, I mean, thank you for saying that's what I'll go look on the website, but I would expect, because it seems like it's a little more complicated, isn't it, than using the 619 wages if you'd already if an employer had already submitted their clearance order offering certain wages. My understanding is then they need to, if those are higher, they need to continue to honor those. Is
That's
that
right.
your understanding?
That's right. We sought specific confirmation from USDOL regarding that point, that if your certified wage is higher than the newly published wage, you must continue to offer it. You can, you basically you can never go lower. You must pay the higher.
Sorry, I guess I have another question then. And I know this probably should be a question to DOL. So I mean, what the effective date was the date that they published them or that they announced them? Or was it like July
The
1st?
So the effective date, the general rule is you must pay those wages at as of the day that they were published. We didn't receive the wage adjustment letter. We don't receive copies of those. If different guidance was given to the employer about the effective date in the guidance letter, ESD doesn't have that information, but the rule of thumb is that those wages are effective as of the date of publish.
Yeah, I received some calls from employers that were confused about it and weren't sure whether they didn't seem to think it was fair that, they were middle of harvest, they were middle of a pay period, and they quite didn't receive any guidance from DOL. I know this is a DOL thing, but they didn't receive any guidance from DOL to do what to do. So they were confused as what wages to pay. And so anyway, yeah, a lot of confusion.
Yes, and we understand that, and also we understand that 6/19 is at or near the peak of cherry season, so the change could not have come at a more chaotic time.
Thanks.
I just want to express that Bertha does a good job of presenting that neutrally, but we felt the chaos too and understand completely.
And also to add, Workforce Services Division, we received, we drafted language to post on our website that has been approved by USDOL, and that will be uploaded to our website if it hasn't already, as soon as possible. As of Monday, it had not gone up yet because we were waiting for USDOL to confirm that those were their words and that's what they wanted us to publish, or excuse me, to post on our website. So we will share that link as soon as it's live with the committee.
All right. Gustavo, anything more on this?
Yes. Thank you, Joy. We recognize that we didn't follow the process that we are used to when it comes to sharing our findings with the survey for the 2023, because it was held in litigation for quite some time. Moving with the 2024 survey results, I believe Josh Moll gave you more or less a timeline. And because we didn't have enough responses, we are revisiting our methods. And once we finalize that, we will share if there are any changes in the methods with all of you and additional stakeholders by the end of this month or next month. In August, like we did with the 2022 survey when we change methods as well. And moving forward, unless there is litigation, we will continue to do what we used to do, which is usually in the summer after we finalize the result, the analysis of the survey responses, then we will convene in a larger group. If there is a interest on this committee for us to come and tell you the status of the survey analysis, and we'll be happy to do that. And it's up to the committee to let us know how frequently you would like to have us come here and provide you the status of the surveys. Any questions? I think that's all on my side, Joy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. All right. So we're moving to the office update. Bertha.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bertha Clayton. I am the director of the Agricultural and Seasonal Workforce Services Office, over which this committee provides advisory oversight. I'd like to update you with some of our happenings as of July 2025. So Vicki, if you could advance to the next slide, please. Discontinuation of services. This is a data point that I've included in my office update for the last few months. Discontinuation of services, of course, is a process by which ESD can initiate based on criteria as outlined in this regulation. So far, in this program years up to 7-1, we have initiated 2 discontinuation of services. In some cases, ESD has discretion about whether or not to initiate this process. And in other cases, we don't. We have an obligation to, and those cases are limited to situations in which there is a final finding of noncompliance by an enforcement agency. So we have 2, any questions about that?
Yeah, I mean, can you tell us where they're at, or anything about how you're finding the process, whether it seems to allow you to the team to do, to take action when needed, or what's your I'm just wondering how it's working.
Sure. So it's our policy, and it's our practice to not identify the employers against which discontinuation of services has been initiated, but generally one of these was a final finding by USDOL, in which USDOL debarred the employer from the H-2A program. We then initiated our process and sent a final letter to that employer. Specifically, the impact of discontinuation of services is that they can no longer use the ESD system to conduct their domestic recruitment, which, as you all know, is really the first prerequisite of the participation in the H-2A program. So the impact of final discontinuation of services is they no longer have the necessary, they no longer can participate in the H-2A program. The other was based on information received by ASWS to indicate that there had been a violation of the terms and assurances of the H-2A contract. That the employer timely responded in that case and provided sufficient assurances that the issues had been rectified and were not going to continue. That analysis is done regarding the sufficiency of assurances. That analysis is done together with our AAG counsel. And so that did not result in a final discontinuation of services. We are evaluating some other cases that are on appeal with enforcement agencies under the regulation. It's not final until the appeal process has been exhausted, which in some cases can take quite some time. For example, in one of these 2, the final finding took 2 years by USDOL to be complete. Okay, next slide, please.
Thank you, Bertha. Just helpful.
Yes, ma'am. Interagency coordination. Wanted to give you an update on the MOUs, or more accurate, or more correctly, the interagency agreements. The 2 that I know that this committee has had its eye on for quite some time is the field check coordination. You'll recall that we had an audit done by the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee, JLARC, and I think actually one of the auditors that assisted in that project is on the call today. The findings directed ASWS or ESD to coordinate a formal agreement with the other agencies listed in the statute regarding coordination of field checks. And those three other agencies are LNI, Department of Health, and Washington State Department of Agriculture. That, as you can probably imagine, when you have four parties to an agreement, it takes some time to go through all of the necessary review and approval levels, but it is out for signature as of this week. So we will share a copy of that finalized agreement. That, of course, fulfills our obligation or the requirement by JLARC and the requirement of the statute, and implementation will begin 30 days after execution. The other one is the updated interagency agreement as between ESD, DOH, and LNI regarding temporary worker housing procedures, roles, and responsibilities. This one is currently in development. The pending issues have to do or surround the housing types, temporary worker housing types that DOH does not currently have inspection and licensing jurisdiction under their regulations. That would be like the range housing and temporary worker housing where there's 9 or fewer occupants. We are working together with DOH on procedures. ESD, we are conducting those inspections when necessary or when DOH does not have the capacity. But we are deciding at this time whether we want to move forward with the MOU and table that matter until further notice, or whether we want to describe the process that we're doing right now and amend the MOU when there's a potential rule change. So that one is in development, and we'll continue to share updates. But I'm happy to answer any questions about that one.
So
The other-
Bertha, could you, I'm sorry, I just want to understand. So until there's a change, DOH is, with the ESD's help when needed, is conducting these inspections, or who's doing the inspections in the meantime?
Pre-occupancy exclusively DOH, with ESD filling in as necessary. LNI was doing courtesy inspections. Of course, LNI doesn't have licensing jurisdiction. Pre-occupancy housing licensing jurisdiction. So LNI was conducting these inspections as a courtesy, and ESD was making the final determination regarding housing compliance. We still make the final determination regarding housing compliance, but it's this subset of housing that there's a gap in our state law where range housing, particularly mobile housing, that housing will likely never be able to meet the current standards for TWH in terms of ceiling height, water source, square footage per person, et cetera. So DOH and ESD are discussing the possibility about a rule change. It would be a rule change for DOH. And I want to stop there because I don't want to speak for DOH. I know Jerry is on the call as proxy for Juan Gomez. Jerry, I don't want to step on your toes here. Do you want to describe what the current status is?
You're doing a fine job, Bertha.
Thanks.
So yeah, I mean, right now, the way the regulations are written under 3.5A, it does not address those specific types of units for range housing, since they are typically like RVs or mobile units. And currently, right now, our regulations does not address that, and there is no guarantee it may address that. Because of the fact it's not 100% up to us, it will be up to the board as well to decide what tapped what parts of the WAC to open when it is time for to complete that role change. And then also, as it is right now, DOH only regulates facilities, just for clarification, that are 10 or more occupied TWHs. Anything less than 10, they are not required to be licensed by DOH. However, the operator, TWH operator, may elect to be licensed in order to get approval for ESD for the ETA 790 form and their contract, which is where we come into place. But right now, for the range housings, we can't even solidify that we can even approve those units based on how they're constructed and the size, basically where everything Bertha just said, square footage, ceiling heights, things like that. So, but yeah, that's where we are right now with that regarding DOH.
And the general theme here is that we, for certain, types of work, for example, sheep herders, where you need mobile units because they need to be out on the range. We want that housing to still be safe and adequate, and the federal standards are very, very, very minimal. But right now, we don't have a body of state law that sets housing standards for those types of units. Moving on to the data sharing agreement, this is a done deal as well. This is a statement of work that's part of a larger MOU as between ESD and LNI. Our statement of work was completed in April of 2025, and I believe the whole agreement, including all 26 statements of work, are complete now. We're happy to share this out. Basically, this statement of work directs LNI to provide final finding information regarding complaints involving H2A workers and or employers, and providing that information to ESD within 5 days of finalization so that we can evaluate those cases for discontinuation of services. This sharing was already happening under a former data sharing agreement, but now the process is clearly outlined. And this has been in the pipeline for about 2 years, so we're happy to get this one finally done. Okay, next slide, please.
Bertha, quick question for you on that last one that you just mentioned. Is it just only on complaints, or does it also include in LNI's normal, compliance checks or visits to employers?
I'd have to look at the agreement for the exact language, but the universe for this is only H2A, and there's also some bilateral sharing too from ESD regarding which employers are H2A, because LNI may not otherwise know that. But specific to your question, I'd have to look at the language. I haven't looked at it lately.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, other things, and we spoke about this during the prevailing wage segment. Just regarding H2A litigation, the specifically FUJ, ESD, of course, is not a party to this lawsuit, but our role is to regularly communicate with USDOL, who is a party and subject to orders of the court in this case, and following their instructions and directives. In May 2025, they directed us to post the prevailing wages on ESD's farm worker page. We did that. On June 19th, as we discussed, the new prevailing wages were published, and we will be posting those once the language has been approved by ESD USDOL. And since I created this slide, it has been. So we will share that link once it's posted. And I believe that Alberto's department is managing that project. On the federal rule side, on 6/20, we U.S. DOL Wage and Hour Division announced that it was suspending enforcement of the H-2A worker protection rule. This wasn't a surprise to us, as we had heard from Wage and Hour Division that their staff hadn't been trained in enforcement of the H-2A worker protection rule, and that they otherwise weren't focusing on enforcement of this rule. Almost 2 weeks later, US DOL announced that it'll amend the H-2A worker protection rule, and it has published a notice of proposed rulemaking. There's a 60-day public comment period, and ESD does plan to submit comments regarding the notice of proposed rulemaking regarding the potential impacts of amendments. So our compliance staff is standing by to confirm what the final changes are. There's also a notice of proposed rulemaking for the Wagner-Peiser staffing rule from, I believe that one was from 2022 or 2023. I think Alberto will cover that in his segment, but ESD also plans to provide public comment on those proposed changes as well. Any questions about the federal rule landscape?
I certainly have questions about the federal rule landscape, but they are myriad, and no one in this meeting could probably clarify every one of them.
It's a very dynamic, fluid landscape right now. It seems like so we're just staying tuned and as much as we can.
And there's legislative impact on all of this stuff too.
I think that may be my final slide. Just to confirm. Oh, excuse me. I actually have 2 more slides. So over the last couple of weeks, ESD has received information to indicate that there have been some deaths of farm workers, one near Findlay, Washington, the other near Grandview, Washington, and I noticed that I put a holder here for my citation, but then I never put it in, so excuse me. But LNI has the jurisdiction to investigate work-related deaths. Last year, when there was a farm worker death, unfortunately, we developed an internal protocol about how ASWS would respond, how we would communicate with other agencies. And in this case, in these cases, we've been in touch with Josh, and we've been directing all media inquiries to the designated LNI contact. Our role at this point, while the farm worker deaths are under investigation by LNI, is to facilitate supportive services, for example, outreach to the Mexican consulate related to family notification, communication, disposition of the remains, etc. So upon conclusion of the investigation, our role will be to evaluate findings. If there are any, we're not suggesting that there will be, but if there are any of employer non-compliance, we'll evaluate those facts for potential discontinuation of services.
Berta, can you repeat exactly what the process is for informing other agencies? I mean, we have a limited role in this, but sometimes we get calls from the governor's office and I do not know. I mean, we could easily say, talk to LNI, but I think in some cases we have to sort of at least know what's going on.
Yeah, so last year, the farm worker death, we found out about it because we were contacted, our compliance specialist was contacted by a family member in Mexico because so we contacted the employer and then immediately reached out to DOSH, looped in the Department of Health. In the June 29th, this one I'm not sure what the kind of sequence of events are, but we communicate with other agencies, or not other agencies, but DOH and LNI to confirm that they know about it. And then really in this case, we've been in touch with DOSH and made ourselves available for the supportive services if necessary. We did reach out to the employer, I think a day or two after we heard about it, to confirm any information that they could give us. But because LNI has a jurisdiction, we are, respecting their process and, waiting for communication once their investigation is done. And the Grandview death, we were advised of this by another state agency. We've been in touch with DOH and LNI about this, but LNI has only been able to provide limited information. We haven't reached out to the employer as ESD does not yet know what the employer, who the employer is.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any, I don't know, Uriel, I guess you're the person who's here from LNI. I don't know if there's anything else you can tell us about the status of these investigations, or?
No, I can't comment until it's concluded. The only thing is that we are aware and we are investigating, like Bertha stated.
Okay.
One of the things that, to add a little bit to Ignacio's question, and Bertha has it in there, the best thing that my advice, if you hear, because information like this goes viral, and so sometimes you hear a week later, and the best thing to do is to contact us, LNI. Either let me know, or you can contact our communications office directly. And for that, just to verify that we are aware of it, because sometimes, unfortunately, we don't get that information from the employer, and we find out, and then that gives us the heads up to follow up with the employer about the situation. So don't be shy about letting us know. We might just say, yeah, thank you very much. We're aware of it, and we're following up on it.
Yeah, that is a good point. ESD was contacted by some media, I don't want to say outlets, but some media contacts, and obviously we're not we're not positioned to provide that information. I know that may be construed as, we're not actively doing anything about it, but we just don't want to put out any bad information. And we also want to, defer to the agency that has jurisdiction over the investigation. Okay, next slide. And I think this is my final slide. Some old business items that have just kind of been hanging out forever. The first bullet point should have been followed by 4 or 5 exclamation points. All of our compliance staff members now have WhatsApp on their state issued cell phones, and it has been a welcome improvement because we are getting we're getting increased communication on WhatsApp, and workers, the observation so far that we've seen is that workers are excited about this. It's their preferred, obviously we've always known it's their preferred method of communication. So it was in the pipeline for a long time, but it finally came to fruition, and it's been a instant and impactful improvement.
Yay, good work. I'm glad that finally was able to happen. Thank you.
And regarding a web page, as you all know, ESD is in the process of replacing its enterprise software system. And we are part of that conversation. We will have a web presence, or web page on the new in the new system that not only will have information about this committee, but will also have some resources, links, updates, etc. So we're really excited about that, and we have a team specifically at ESD that is assisting us in that process. We're also working with communications to finalize a trifold that we will be handing out to employers and workers regarding some topics that are often misunderstood. For example, what corresponding employment is, what is required as far as inbound transportation costs. All of those things kind of our most frequently asked questions and our top topics of confusion. Communications has been a tremendous help in putting it in plain talk, and it's almost ready to go. So we'll share that out once it is. And then credit to our compliance staff members who are working on a compliance specialist handbook. This has been a aspirational project for, since I've been here, that we need a handbook so that we can onboard new staff, so that we can be transparent about what our processes are, et cetera. And so far, this is looking pretty good. So it's in development, and this project is completely staff-led by our compliance specialists. And shout out to our team who's doing fantastic work in building this tool. And I think I'm done. And I think at this point, I will pass it over to Petra Mraz to talk about some FLC data.
Thank you, Bertha. Good afternoon, everyone. As you
John, before you start, I see a question from John Devaney.
Yeah, thanks, Vicki. Bertha, just a quick question on your last slide there. I think that the WhatsApp is a big accomplishment for your office and for this committee. And I think that it would be really helpful to compile the usage data and maybe think about documenting that in a letter back to those we had to pressure to accept that change so that it's in the record that this was not just us floating a generalized idea, that pushing this through was really worth it, because that same logic maybe need to be applied at other agencies as well to facilitate the kind of communications platforms that work for the audience. So I think we put a lot of years of work into talking about this. I think we should probably make more of it than part of a slide in one of our meetings.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I don't want to put my colleague Alberto on the spot here, but this WhatsApp accessibility is also for our Wagner Pizer MSFW staff. And Workforce Services Division had a big part in helping push this through. So Alberto, do you want to make a comment? Because a lot of credit belongs to your division.
Mm-hmm. It's shared across the board. I think overall, we all know the value that this carries for our populations, and we know that this is an application that is used. So I recognize there were some administrative hurdles that we had across, but thank you for all your support. Yeah, it's been a team effort, and we're really excited. And I really love the idea of us looking for ways to compile usage data that we could report back how that's being leveraged. So no, thank you for your support.
Yeah, thank you, Alberto and Bertha. And John, thank you for bringing that up, because there are places throughout the enterprise that we can apply this, and we should. So we will be moving forward in that vein. Thank you. Okay, Petra, your turn.
Thank you. And as you all know, my name is Petra Meraz. I'm the Foreign Labor Coordinator Supervisor for the H2A and H2B program. And today I'll be reporting on the H2A data from October 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. And next slide, thank you. We, ESD, have received, processed, reviewed, approved, or denied a total of 451 applications with 38,213 workers requested for those applications. 2 of those applications were denied by Department of Labor due to employers not providing housing. 1 contract was impossibility. This contract was canceled after certification due to weather issues. 17 applications were removed due to a court order, and those applications had 1,346 workers requested. And as of now, we have 55 applications that are in process, meaning those applications are still being reviewed. Housing has still been worked on, referrals are still being worked on, or any amendments that the employer have requested. Those applications have 5,140 workers requested. These applications have not been certified yet, and at this point, we're still working on those, and they could be certified, they could be denied. We're still working on those applications. Out of the 451 applications, there was 36 applications with 2,515 workers requested that were withdrawn by employers due to issues on the language, or employers did not want to continue with those applications. So these 36 applications will never be certified. Employers can resubmit a new application if they want to continue, but these applications are withdrawn. Next slide, please. Thank you. And sorry.
Can you go back on the slide on the court order? Remind us what you can.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, if you can remind us on the court order ones. If you
Which ones
can,
are?
let us know.
I'm so sorry, but you break up every time I hear the question.
Can you hear me now?
I think so, yes. Go ahead.
On the court order, ones that you have, the 17 applications, and could you remind us which court orders or those apply to?
This one was the one on April 29th of this year. This is the one where there was a new application that the employers had to submit for the 2022 new applications forms. This was actually back in November. I can get you a little more information on that, but these are there was new applications that employers have to use with the new final rule, and those applications were no longer used, so we went back to using the 2022 forms. And when I say we, I'm talking about employers and everyone.
So does that mean that they resubmitted?
Correct. These
Okay.
17 applications were resubmitted, and they are included in the 451.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. If no other questions, okay, thank you. And as of June 30th, there are no more active contracts for PY 2024. The only active contracts are for PY 2025, and those are 294 with 26,131 workers requested for those applications. Active means these job orders are open and employers are having the workers work under these contracts. Next slide, please. And this graph shows us the applications that each AHO order holding office has in the Central Basin. As you can see, there's 161 applications out of the 451 applications. Those applications are 116 are in the Central Basin area with 15,390 workers requested. And out of those 451 applications, 7 applications are in the Pierce office for 198 workers requested. Next slide, please. And this is my final slide. This shows the percentage of the applications that are active. Central Basin has 38% of the workers that are working now. And as you can see, Walla Walla has a 2% out of that 100%.
Petra, could you remind us which the Central Basin? I always confuse the Columbia Basin and the Central Basin. Which counties or what area is covered by the Central Basin?
Central Basin is in the Moses Lake area, and it's Adams and Grant County.
And so that's not Columbia, and then Columbia Basin?
Columbia Basin is Kennewick office. That would be Franklin. I'm sorry?
No, sorry, thank you. Okay.
Benton and Franklin.
Okay.
So one is the Kennewick, Columbia Basin is Kennewick,
Okay.
and Central Basin is Moses Lake, if that helps.
Yeah, no, that does. Thank you.
Of course. And if there's no other questions for me, I am done with my presentation.
Oh, hello everybody. Can you hear me just fine?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. So hello everybody. I'm Susana Rodriguez, and I'm here to report some data regarding the compliance team. So we can go ahead and dive in. So you see here in the data, we have the team has visited 272 sites, and then they have contacted 14,104 workers. And regarding field checks, we have been able to do 15 field checks, and this is due to 31 workers. And if you can see on the right side, it's breaking down how many workers have got a job placement per field check. And then in the bottom part, in the left bottom part, you can see the complaint status. And then you can also see, like, so far we have received 55 complaints. We have 0 in progress. Right now we have been able to come up with a resolution, identify when there's a referral to be done. And then 30 out of those 55, 34 complaints have been informally resolved. So what it means is we've been able to contact the employer, identify what's happening, and then easily come up with a resolution. And then 14 out of those have been referred to other agencies. The most common will be LNI and DOL. That has been the most common referrals. And then on the right lower side, you can it's breaking down these complaints main topics. And so you go ahead is other, and then worker recruitment, worker termination are the most common ones. And then the list goes on as a supervisor, misconduct, wage related, housing, retaliation, and the list just keeps going further. But you can see that the number is minimizing. Mike, I'm sorry, I just see your hand.
Yes, can you give some clarification on what the human trafficking complaint is about, and also whether the worker recruitment complaints have to do with alleged non-hiring of local workers when H-2A workers are present?
Oh, okay. So let me focus on the first one. The human trafficking, there was in regarding some visas when it is classified in this one when the employer have taken the visas. So that will be this topic, and we only have one as of the last quarter. And what was the other question, Mike? Regarding worker recruitment, is that what you're asking?
But I'm still not clear on the human trafficking. What makes that potentially human trafficking again?
So human trafficking, and then Bert, you can help me out since you have more background in these complaints. But human trafficking, it is regarding, like, if they take the visas away from the workers. And go ahead, Bertha.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I have to look at the complaint log to confirm, the facts of this, but this is instances where the visa has expired, or where the employer has facilitated the production of a fake work permit, or is holding the employee over and is having them work for another employer, etc. Like, I mean, I'm not suggesting that those are the facts in this, but I'm describing circumstances in which we would categorize those issues as human trafficking.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. On the recruitment, did any of those alleged violations have to do with local workers applying for jobs and being turned down when H-2A workers were present?
And Susanna, I can take this if you'd like me to, or you can.
Yeah, go for it. Thank you.
Yes, that's exactly what this pertains to, specifically where there's unnecessary or unlawful barriers to hiring that worker that's otherwise, qualified, available, willing. This would be like having them do pre-employment things that are not required of the H-2A workers, or not calling them back, or not calling them back in a reasonable time. All of those things would fall into this bucket.
Okay, thank you. And then the other category, which is large, what kind of things are in there?
In the other?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been seeing, for example, local workers reporting that they're not getting as many hours at H-2A, or from both H-2A reporting that they are not getting as many hours as the contract says. So that's what it will mainly think what I've seen in this topic, and then we go and then look. We identify what is the issue. We talk to the employer, and we reminding like what the guidance said, and then or maybe why the hours are offered less. It could be due to the season, it could be due to some low production. So that is mainly the order as of right now.
Okay, thank you very much. And when will these complaints be finalized?
So as of right now, as at the end of this quarter, all of them have been processed, or having final resolution or sent to another agency.
Okay,
so the 65 have been closed.
So are they still considered to be alleged violations, or are they considered to be violations?
So then, go ahead, Bertha.
Sure, Susanna, I can take this. So there's zero in process, which means that all of these complaints have met one or more criteria in the CFR being considered resolved. Whether that was, it was the issue was, to the complainant's satisfaction, whether it was referred to an enforcement agency. ESD is not, as our role as a neutral, facilitator for these complaints, the standard for resolved for us is in the regulation. So I guess in response to your question, each of these complaints have met the definition of resolved for the purpose of the complaint system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Your questions?
Could I ask another question? We've been out talking to workers at labor camps as well, and there is, we've been hearing the issue of not enough hours, which of course there's, a lot of causes for. But One of the questions that's come up for me is whether employers are aware of the regulation in the 2024 regulations, which at the moment are still in effect, even if DOL is not enforcing them, which has to do with if work is going to start later than the date of need, and informing workers of that before they travel, or if they do arrive and then have to wait around for work to start, having an obligation to pay them for the hours. And I just wondered if you've been discussing that at all with either workers or employers.
So Susan, I can take that too, and you can fill in too with more specific facts. But we have seen that in the past few years, post 2024 H2A worker protection rule. I don't recall that issue has come through our office yet. I know in 2022 and 2023, we had situations in the Central Basin area where H2A workers would arrive, and then there wouldn't be work for 2 weeks, and under the regulations, there was no obligation of the employer to pay them for that time up front, which created a situation in which they were food insecure, et cetera, and we had to get some community-based organizations involved. But as to that specific issue, I don't think it's come through our office this year. Although, Susana, please correct me if I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I don't recall having this topic yet.
Thank you so much.
All right, let me just really check if there's any more hands. I don't see more hands up.
Susana, this is Ignacio. So out of these 55 complaints, do you know what percentage are workers that are here from a different country, and how many of them are local workers? Or are all these workers from outside the country?
These are mainly H2A workers, and maybe there's like a really low number. I don't know exactly the number where we still like log if they were to become a local worker. We will still refer out to the program that deals with local workers. But when we have a correspondence employment, we will log it here because it still we follow up. But I don't have a specific example. I'm sorry, specific number, but it's not. I know it's a lot for sure.
So if a worker goes to WorkSource, a local worker goes to WorkSource and files a complaint at the WorkSource office with someone outside of the ASWS program, would that be in here or would that be somewhere else in another count? And it's an H2A, and it's an H2A employer.
So our internal, so our ESD policy is that if the complaint is regarding an employer that has had a job order, an H2A job order in the last 24 months, then the referral of that complaint will be made from the local office to ASWS. We I don't want to say own those complaints, but those complaints come to us. If it is an MSFW and the issue is not regarding an employer, a current H2A employer, an employer who's had a job order in the last 24 months, then that would be handled by the local office as is required by the federal regulations.
Okay.
So yes, Ignacio, if it meets that criteria, it gets referred to us and it will be included in this data. It is included in this data.
Okay. And then Susana said that the number of complaints from local workers is very, very small. So out of these 55, it's
yeah, I'm thinking about how we I mean, we obviously will include that information in our narrative. It's a question, you know, that we ask, but I wouldn't say it's very small, but we don't, I guess it's not specifically, I guess, tracked. Obviously, worker recruitment, I would say probably nine out of 9 of those are probably domestic worker complaints or apparent violations. But the majority of our complaints and our apparent violations are from or about H2A workers.
Okay,
Thanks for
thanks.
that. Thanks for that clarification, Bertha.
So, this is Uriel. Related to that, I mean, one of the things that we do hear a lot, and I think, Bertha, you were alluding to that from the workers, especially domestic workers, is about the not being hired, retaliation to get them fired, and things like that from the domestic workers. And that is a constant narrative that we've been hearing for the last couple of years. So from domestic workers. And so would it be helpful to maybe separate those? Because I think this goes to what are we hearing out there and how many corresponding complaints are being filed related to that issue. And it seems low, but the concerns from the domestic workers hasn't gone away up to now.
That's a good point, and agree. And also I want to encourage everyone on the call that if they're receiving information indicating that there's some type of non-compliance happening with regards to employer domestic recruitment obligations as they pertain to the H2A program, please contact us. We want to know about it. We want to evaluate it. We want to get that employer some technical assistance. We want to talk to that worker. Please let us know about it.
Thank you, Bertha. And I do want to second what Uriel is saying. We're hearing it quite a bit as well. And sometimes, I mean, not every worker wants to file a complaint because if the other workers, you know, what happens is there might be a group that wasn't rehired. Like one thing I'm hearing more is like not being rehired, say this spring when they've worked there in the past because they're told, you know, we're bringing in H2A workers. And then maybe only the one person who'd called, when he can't get the other workers to agree to make a joint complaint, he's afraid of retaliation and decides not to file a complaint. And so I think it's a larger issue than these numbers show because we're definitely hearing about it in the community as well, that people say, you know, we just don't get the hours, or we may get a short time of work when the H2A workers are hired for the whole season. And then we'll get hired just for when, you know, the highest need period. And then we're getting laid off or we're not getting enough hours. The H2A workers are getting more. That kind of thing is very, very common for us to hear.
Michelle, you have a great point. I agree that you're hearing the community. So then, like Bert is saying, if you keep hearing more these cases, please let us know that we are in the know, that we can capture these correctly, and we can reevaluate our process and see what else we can do regarding this topic. Does anybody have any other questions? I can move on. Yes. Okay. So then this is the data that we have collected due to the RCW 50.75.060 data collection. So 21,911 are the workers that have been requested. And then 15,915 are workers that have been received according to the employers. And as you see in the bottom, 62% are matching these numbers, only 60%, and the housing location, 91% is matching the data provided by the employer. and the worksite location is matching 88%. Does
So,
anybody have any question?
yeah, I mean, this is confusing to me. I'm trying to think. So when the worksite locations don't match, is that just that their workers are at an address, a work site that's not listed on the clearance order? Is that what that represents?
When the worksite location doesn't match?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
then, go ahead, Bertha, thank you.
No problem. I would say, yeah, that could be. And also, I want to highlight here that the statute, from HB 2226 requiring us to collect this information at site visits and field checks requires us to collect the data as self-reported by the employer, but it doesn't, and we're providing this to you just kind of as an example to kind of make the data more tangible. But it doesn't require USDOL, or excuse me, not USDOL. It doesn't require ASWS to do any specific follow-up, and it doesn't require us to specifically analyze the data in a certain way. So this is raw data that we have compiled. So it could be a committee conversation as to whether this is what you're expecting to see, whether this reporting meets the intent of the House bill. I think that Josh Dye may be on here, who's our legislative relations director, and we've had a lot of conversations with him about what the statute requires us to do, and this is very much data in the raw.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yeah, just interesting. I mean, I guess that's what I'm I guess what I mean is though is when so basically the data is you're at a lot. How do you even gather this? You're at the work site and then it's not the same address, or in other words, what does it even mean on the ground? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, that is a good question. I can take that one. So then pretty much the compliance specialist will go to the work site with this form and then it provided to the employer to fill this information, how many workers are here, the housing address, and that's how we are getting this data every time we go to a site visit.
And if it would be of interest, and Carlos, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that you would do an excellent job in describing your process as to how you collect this data, because this data, the statute directs that the data must be as of the date of the field check or the site visit, and how you, log it in our internal system.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Carlos, compliance specialist in Region 7. So like it was mentioned in this meeting, ASWS does have a form created by communications in which the compliance specialist provides the employer as of the date of the visit that form to be completed by the employer. I could attach that form on the chat if you would like, but that's basically what we do. When it's field checks, obviously, because they are unannounced, that form is given physically to the employer right then and there at the field check. When it's a site visit, those are pre-scheduled. So those could be handed to the employer via email and ask for them to return it to us filled out, or when we show up to the site visit in person with the employer. Does that help?
sure, thank you.
Okay, perfect. And I don't see more hands up. So then I think that is the final slide for me. Thank you.
Okay, I'll move us right along here for some updates on our Workforce Services Division efforts. Hi, my name is Alberto Isiordia, Assistant Director of Operations for our Workforce Services Division, and today I'll bring you a couple of key updates on our outreach performance, along with some key, just general updates that I think are important for the committee to be aware of. Next slide, please. So starting with our outreach performance today from October 1st to June 30th, 2025, as you can see, currently our outreach days are down when compared to last year from 1,600 to 1,470. So you can see a slight dip there. While you see the number of total MSFWs contacted reported as being up by over 5,000. Next slide, please. And here you see a summary of our complaints and apparent violations. So Ignacio, great question that you posed before. As Bertha articulated very well, we do process complaints. We're required to through our workforce services offices, through our WorkSource offices. And we process both employment service complaints, complaints that may be against employers that we serve, or concerns against us, complaints against us specifically. As you can see, we processed 29 between October 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. Two of those also being apparent violations. And of those, 24 were referred, 11 of which were H2A related. So again, you could see that relationship of us relying on our ASWS team to further process those H2A related complaints or apparent violations. And of those that we have jurisdiction, you can see 3 of them were resolved locally. And I think I might have seen, nope, I thought I saw Teams chat go up. My apologies. Next slide. So here's one of the key updates that I wanted to provide to the committee today. As you recall from our presentation from Dan Zeitlin, our Chief of Staff, our claimant placement fund has been increasingly challenged. And as you all know, over 25 years plus, Wagner Pizer has remained stagnant essentially while our operating costs increase. So in January, we made a request to the Department of Labor to review our MSFW office designation. And really what we were doing is seeking more flexibility in our smaller offices where we see less farm workers served, and we see a smaller density of farm workers where compared to other areas. So we submitted the request to the Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor, after reviewing it, including the National Monitor Advocate's Office, approved our request. And so what you see now is the offices of WorkSource Columbia Gorge, which is in White Salmon, WorkSource Walla Walla, and WorkSource Skagit, which is in Mount Vernon, have been de-designated as MSFW significant. Now, what this does not mean is that we stop doing outreach to farm workers. But what it does mean is that we're no longer required to dedicate one individual full-time year-round to just outreach activities alone. We are now able to not either split those responsibilities or, yes, reduce those responsibilities or scale those so that allows us to meet other needs. So in this process, we did not lay off a single individual, but we are looking to scale outreach responsibilities. I also want to note that, again, as you've seen in previous reports, we conduct outreach throughout the state. So, even with this change, we're not going to see a change in doing outreach, but you certainly may see a reduction in the amount of outreach that we're doing in those offices. Any questions?
Well, I do just wonder, I get it, Alberto, and but like, I know that, for example, Columbia Gorge, I know that office because it's so out in the middle of nowhere. There are so few other resources. I feel like it's been I know I've been aware of it being a real resource for workers, who are looking for help, in that area and that whole, region. And I just wondered, so if there's somebody who's been the MSFW outreach worker there, what what availability do they still have for farm workers that are looking for help?
Yes. So, I mean, we will still have somebody doing outreach, not to that same level, but I think that's where we continue to lean on partnerships. Although admittingly, we see resources of our partners also being reduced in this current environment. So we do have a very close partnership, for example, with OHDC, which is our training grantee, our WIO 167 training grantee over on the Oregon side. We continue to work closely with OIC, but OHDC in particular is highly visible in that area. And so we partner with them and along with our LNI and other state agencies. But yes, we continue to partner, but admittingly, it's at a scaled down level.
Thank you.
Next
Yeah,
slide.
this is
Go ahead.
Ignacio. Yeah, I mean, those two offices have always been sort of the smaller offices of the 10, Skagit and Columbia Gorge, Walla Walla, even smaller. Um, Yet, I mean, even in Skagit, there's still a lot of ag up there. It'll just be interesting how those offices can continue providing services to the ag community, not just the farm workers themselves, but the employers too. So, have you seen, I mean, data wise, have you seen a decrease in the number of ag employers and farm workers in those two offices, Columbia Gorge and Skagit?
So when we looked at this, we did a couple of things. And if we can go on to our next slide, I can show you some of the data that we looked at, which wasn't the only data, but we started by looking at how many farm workers are we serving in those offices. Of course, we take that with a grain of salt because we know, not all farm workers access our services, right? And so when you look at the regions, Central Sound being Seattle, King County area, right? You see a small number of farm workers represented. Same with the North Sound region, which encompasses Snohomish, all the way up to Skagit, Whatcom, Southwest Coastal, which encompasses Olympia down to Vancouver. And then where you begin to see a higher density of the individuals that we serve, the farm workers that we served, are in the eastern region, which would be Benton, Franklin, Walla Walla, Spokane, and of course, central region, which is the whole central part of the state from Omak to Wenatchee to Yakima. So we considered some of that data. We also looked at our agricultural workforce data that's on esd.wa.gov that's produced by our data team. And again, we looked at the agricultural workforce data that they placed, and it was pretty consistent with what we see with our performance in that you see the highest density in central Washington and eastern Washington when compared to other areas in the state. So we certainly, and obviously they break it down by county. So even when I say central Washington, you could see a difference between, Klickitat County to Yakima, Grand Adams, et cetera. So that was the data that we presented to the Department of Labor when we made this request so that we can determine how we can best scale those efforts. So I'm not sure if that fully responds to your question, Ignacio, so happy to entertain a follow-up there.
No, yeah, I mean, sort of. I guess, you know, obviously we would love for WorkSource to be the hub of of services and information for farm workers and ag employers, but reality is that it's not. So I was looking for other data. Is like, okay, well, what are our partners doing? Are they serving as less farm workers? What is the census data point to? What is acreage point to? And so that's just to kind of back up what you ended up doing anyway. So just curious.
Thank you for the question. And Joy, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, I may have missed it and you may have said this, but I wanted to follow up on this with the pointing out that this does not change anything. We're not losing any funding in those offices because of this de-designation. What we're doing is we're increasing our flexibility for how we best staff those offices to include continuing to serve our farm workers. That this is really in reaction to how the MSFW program required we set the staffing for those offices and refused any opportunities to work with us on finding a flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think flexibility is a key, and a good example in some of our smaller offices. Outreach will remain important, but there's certain times of the year where it's most important, right? Where it becomes a little more intensified, because I would argue outreach is always important, right? But it becomes more intensified, obviously, during growing seasons, during UI season. But a good example, when I say UI season, during the winter, we know there are still key events going on, community events with schools, et cetera, that we need to be visible in, but we get more of our farm worker population that comes into our office. Now these positions can also meet those individuals in the offices, where in the past they simply could not. And so that flexibility is helpful, especially in our present environment, to ensure we're scaling our efforts and meeting customers where they're demanding services. Thank you for that. Okay, next slide, please. And this next slide will just give you a further breakdown by office on our performance in our significant offices, as we've historically had those. So you will see a slight adjustment, although you can anticipate we'll still be reporting our statewide performance on farm worker activities. Next slide, please. So this is another key update that I wanted to make the committee aware of, and certainly get your questions or thoughts, is I do want to make you aware that we are making preparations to resubmit the ag clearance order waiver to the Department of Labor. If you recall, we did this back in 2022 after committee discussion and endorsement. The Department of Labor responded on June 30th, 2022 and denied our request. And just to refresh your memories on this requirement and waiver request, the regulations currently require us to suppress, or in a sense withhold, employer identifying information in job announcements. And the case that we made to the Department of Labor then, and that we'll be making again, is that this information is disclosed already by the Department of Labor. And so we are seeking for the department to reevaluate this waiver request. But in order to do so, we do need to place this to a 15-day public comment. So the department is intending to place this for public comment for 15 days. Certainly all of you will be made aware when this goes out. And certainly if you have any questions, concerns, we would welcome hearing them either here today, or certainly happy to address your questions after as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alberto, for all those updates, and appreciate you allowing me to interrupt you with the last one.
Sound good.
Okay. All right. I think, Vicki, could you go to the next slide, please? Pretty sure we're public comment next. Yes. All right. So we are at the public comment phase of our morning meeting. If you'd like to make a public comment, including any suggested future agenda items, please state your name and spell it so we can capture it correctly for the minutes, as well as the organization you represent, if that's the case. Your comments are being recorded. However, if you'd like your comments to be included in the meeting minutes, please submit them in writing by email to Vicki Carlson at the email she has dropped in the chat. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Do we have anyone who would like to give public comment? I am not seeing any takers at this moment. So depending on how the evening discussions go, we may have opportunity for public comment there as well. We'll see. But other than that, I think we are good for this morning's session. So let's go ahead, and we're not adjourning, we are recessing until 5 o'clock. We will pick this up then. Same bat link, same bat channel, same bat passcode when you come on for the 5 o'clock, and we will continue into discussion at that point. So thank you all. We'll see you later this evening.